Make sure this is going. We're beginning the book over. Last week we read through the first letter in the doctor's opinion, and like I explained, the first letter was not necessarily written to be put into the big book. It was written as a promotion for the book. They were trying to get this book off and running, and it was a simple letter from the doctor to help kind of qualify the people that wrote it. Now, in the first letter, we talked about Dr. Silkworth not really going out on a limb. Everything he said was, they might, they may, they possibly. But at the end of his first letter, he says, you may rely absolutely on anything they say about themselves. So that right there already shows that he's on board. He's with it, but he's not really sticking his neck out. Okay. They go down towards the end of this little writing. It's not in his letter, but they said, though we work out our solution on a spiritual as well as altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization for the alcoholic who is still jittery or befogged. More often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached, as he then has a better chance of understanding it and accepting what we have to offer. So that whole thing, we talk about it in chapter 7, working with others, this balance between not being drunk but not feeling good. Like, we want them right in between. What they're talking about for the hospitalization is basically this acute phase of detoxing. Get the alcohol out of the system, okay? They go on to explain our disease as being a twofold disease, that we have a problem in our brain and a problem with our body. The bodily part is when I have the chemical in my body is reacting different than a normal person. It creates this absolute have to have it. Me and my wife were having a conversation the other day, and I was trying to get her to feel the feeling of obsession, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't produce this feeling. And I gave her a couple scenarios to try to produce it, and she goes, I know. She said, there's days where I absolutely am set on having a beer at the end of the day. And she said, is it kind of like that? I said, no. I said, it's not about making that decision that at the end of the day you're going to have one. I said, it's the fact that I don't have a decision to make. I have to have it. And she goes, well, I don't know what it's like to have it. I said, exactly, that's the difference. I said, you may think about it all day, but the problem is we obsess about it all day. I have to have it, right? So that's the first part of the disease. Then what happens is, in my last relapse, I was 4 months sober, did not have anything in my system, and still picked up. Well, why did I still pick up if I didn't have the obsession going? Because the second half of my disease was still active, which is centered in my brain, and my brain kept saying, it's not that big of a deal, beer's not going to hurt. Everybody else has beers, whatever. And I picked up, and sure enough, started the allergy all over again, right? So, to go into a little history, how this all kind of started, Ebby came to Bill Wilson with the Oxford Group steps. The Oxford Group was a evangelical Christian movement, basically. It wasn't geared towards staying sober. It was more geared towards just being a better person. So Ebby brought these steps to Bill. Bill goes with Ebby to an Episcopal mission church drunk. Okay. At the end of the preaching, they ask if anyone wants to come to the altar, give their life to Jesus. He rushes down there, gives his life to Jesus while he's drunk, goes home drunk, gets up the next day and drinks. Why? Because the alcohol never left the system. Okay, we never got that alcohol out. So even we've done it a million times. I'm not doing this tomorrow. Yes, I'm going to give my life to Jesus or whoever it is and do everything I got to do. And the next morning we wake up. Problem is that alcohol's still inside, and it's creating this little thing in the back of my head that I can't get away from, right? So he finally got sober when he went in for the third time within 7 days. He went into the hospital, worked the steps, had a spiritual awakening, left a free man. Okay, and that's how this all started. Again, I was talking about, calling on him when he's jittery and all that stuff. I like that sweet spot of where they're at. In the back of the book on page 156, you can read Bill Dobson's story. it talks about them going in and talking to him, and then he didn't necessarily accept it right away. The next day they went back and he was ready. Okay, and there's more details to it. But moving forward, the next letter we're about to read, I don't know the exact person's name. I don't know the exact history. Forgive me, but when they wrote the manuscript for the book, they gave it to a doctor friend of theirs. That doctor friend said, "This is amazing." Now, obviously, it did not have the doctor's opinion in this manuscript. They gave it to their doctor friend. The doctor friend said, "This is absolutely amazing, but I suggest that you get somebody who knows the scientific view about this to add a little bit to it," okay, because we're going off of your opinion right now. So that's when they went back to Dr. Silkworth and said, "Would you mind enlarging on this first letter that you wrote?" Okay. So this is his second letter that he wrote specifically to be put into this book. It says, "The subject presented in this book seems to be of paramount importance to those afflicted with the alcohol addiction." Right off the bat. The last letter was maybe, possibly, sort of, I think, it seems. Now he starts the letter by saying, "It seems to me to be of paramount importance, more than anything. I say this after many years' experience as a medical director of one of the oldest hospitals in the country treating alcohol and drug addiction. There was, therefore, a sense of real satisfaction when I was asked to contribute a few words on a subject which is covered in such masterly details in these pages." So now he's really going on a limb and saying masterly details. Now he's really driving this home that he agrees with everything in here. Now he's going on a limb and pulling all the other doctors with him and saying, we doctors have realized, like it's not just him, he's talking about all the doctors now, have realized for a long time that some form of moral psychology was of urgent importance to alcoholics, but its application presented difficulties beyond our conception. What with our ultra-modern standards, our scientific approach to everything, we are perhaps not well equipped to apply the powers of good that lie outside our synthetic knowledge. Right here is a funny way of him saying, I'm a human and I don't have the answer. And the answer needs to come from somebody that's bigger than a human. Bottom line, he's saying we rely on science and the answers to this alcoholic problem might be beyond science. Okay. Many years ago, one of the leading contributors to this book came under our care in this hospital, and while here, he acquired some ideas which he put into practical application at once. Bill Wilson. He had a white light experience in the hospital. Later, he requested the privilege of being allowed to tell his story to other patients here, and with some misgiving, we consented. The cases we have followed through with have been most interesting. In fact, many of them are amazing. The unselfishness of these men as we have come to know them, the entire absence of profit motive, and their community spirit is indeed inspiring to one who has labored long and warily in this alcoholic field. They believe in themselves and still more in the power, capitalized, which pulls chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. Of course, an alcoholic ought to be freed from his physical craving of liquor, and this often requires a definite hospital procedure before psychological measures can be of maximum benefit. Meaning, if you're drunk, it's very hard for me to apply the psychological part of this, the steps, if you're still drinking. Okay, it's tough. It's not impossible, but it's tough. And I'm not saying that if somebody comes into this meeting and is drunk and says they want to work their steps, that I would ever deny them. I would never. I would always try. But what he's saying is, let's get them cleared a little bit. Let's try to clear this up, clear the brain a little bit. We believe, and so suggested a few years ago, that the action of alcohol on these chronic alcoholics is a manifestation of an allergy, that the phenomenon of craving is limited to this class and never occurs in the average temperate drinker. These allergic types can never safely use alcohol in any form at all, and once having formed the habit and found they cannot break it, once having lost their self-confidence, their reliance upon human things, their problems pile up on them and become astonishingly difficult to solve. frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. That sentence right there, I know anybody who's been sitting in here long enough already knows this, but frothy emotional appeal seldom suffices. I've read this 100 times, over and over again. Now, my dumb face sometimes, I read things, and if I don't understand it, I kind of just generalize what I think it may be. I make up my own definition sometimes, and then you marry a Russian who says, what does that mean? And I go, I don't have a clue. She goes, how long have you been reading this? I said, I never thought about it. And now she needs a definition, so I actually have to look up the definitions now. So frothy emotional appeal, I always just pictured the froth on a beer. That's as far as I ever went with the idea. I don't know. But what that is the frothy emotional appeal. Oh, your family's so amazing. Do it for your family. Oh, you got such a good life. Look how good your life is. It's this fluffy stuff that everybody always gave me. But talking about that it seldom suffices mean it usually doesn't work. Why doesn't it usually work? Because when somebody said to me, look at the band you're in, look how great you guys are doing, look at the family you have, look how amazing, do it for them. I already knew all of this. I knew I had a great family. I knew I was living my dream in my band. I knew all this. But none of them were saying, oh, here's how you stop. They just said, you need to stop for them. Yeah, no crap. I've had this conversation in my own head every night. I know this. Like, I know I need to stop, but the problem is nobody's telling me how, okay? So, that fluffy emotional appeal that everybody always gives us barely works, okay? The message which can interest and hold these alcoholic people must have depth and weight. In nearly all cases, their ideas must be grounded in a power greater than themselves if they are to recreate their lives. That is the basis of all of this, okay? Number one, the message that you're giving me better have some depth and weight to it. Because otherwise, I'm going to trail off, oh, do it for your mom, do it for this, do it for that. I know. But when somebody sits across the table from me and says, man, I sniffed so much coke that I was up for like 3 days, and I remember hearing the birds chirp in the morning, and I was trying to use alcohol to bring myself back down, and it wasn't working, and this and that, and I'm like, nobody has ever said this to me. Like, I didn't know other people did this. And I come into a meeting, and I start telling my story, and nobody's shocked, right? I tell the worst thing I ever thought I did, and nobody bats an eye at it. And I'm like, holy crap, all these people did the same thing I did. It has to have depth and weight, okay? And when one alcoholic, they talk about it in here, that one alcoholic can win over the confidence of another alcoholic within a few hours or minutes. And it's only armed by the facts about my story. That's all I have to do is tell them my story, and they go, oh, friggin' normal people don't talk like this. Okay, I'm talking about the things that are inside your head now. Like all those things that we used to like jam down, it's coming out of my mouth, and they go, holy crap, they know what they're talking about here. Normal people never said this to me, right? So it's got to have depth and weight. Then he goes on, now, how many doctors have you ever gone to? And I'm sure it's happened, don't get me wrong. But how many times have you gone to a doctor and they say, hey, we got your blood results back. Yeah, your cholesterol is a little high. And you go, so what do I do? And they go, well, you should probably find God and pray about it. That's what this doctor's saying. He's saying you need to find a power greater than yourself. Like, that's the only way. We can't find an answer, so you got to go somewhere else and find something outside of this world. So that's something to really, like, give the power to, that this doctor is the one telling us they got to find God. They got to find something else because we've tried. It ain't working, right? It's the only other answer we got. So if we feel that if any feel that a psychiatrist directing a hospital for alcoholics we feel somewhat sentimental, let them stand with us on the firing line. See the tragedies, the despairing wives, the little children. Let the solving of these problems become part of their daily work and even of their sleeping moments. And the most cynical will not wonder why we have accepted and encouraged this movement. So he's saying, if you think that we're just being too sentimental with these alcoholics, stand with us for a little bit and see what we've seen, right? And all of a sudden these guys are getting sober. Okay, we'll take anything. Let them stand on the firing lines with us and see what we've experienced. It's tragic, right? We feel, now he's saying we feel. Who's we? Him and the other doctors. Like, he's dragging all of them with him now. Like, we're all going out on a limb now. We feel after many years of experience that we have found nothing which has contributed more to the rehabilitation of these men than the altruistic movement now growing up among them. Men and women drink essentially because they like the effect produced by alcohol. Period. That's it. That's it. There's no other reason. All the other stuff, oh, my girlfriend broke up with me, oh, my mom did this, or I lost my job, that's not the reason. That's just the excuse. That's the excuse I use to go do what I really wanted to do anyway, right? The reason that I drink is because I like what it does for me. Bottom line, simple. I don't even like the taste of alcohol. I think it's disgusting. But I'm going to down a bottle of it because of what it does for me, okay? You know, I respect these guys that sit in these breweries nowadays, and they're like, oh, this beer is a lager, and this one, it has some orange peel in the brew, and I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? Does it get you drunk? I'm like, that's all that matters to me. Like, why are we... I never thought about the taste of it, ever. I was drinking natural ices. That was my high class. Like, I drank that because I can get more. It was cheap. The sensation is so elusive that while they admit that it's injurious, they cannot after a time differentiate the true from the false. To them, their alcoholic lives seem the only normal one. They are restless, irritable, and discontent, unless they can again experience the sense of ease and comfort which comes at once by taking a few drinks which they see others taking with impunity. After they have succumbed to the desire again, as so many do, and the phenomenon of craving develops, they pass through the well-known stages of a spree, emerging remorseful with a firm resolution not to drink again. This is repeated over and over and over and over and over again, unless this person can experience an entire psychic change, there is very little hope on his recovery. That is a dooming paragraph. Okay, that is a hopeless paragraph. Unless you can have a psychic change, you're done. You're doomed, right? The next one's a little bit nicer. It says, on the other hand, as strange as this may seem to those who do not understand, which is my wife and all these other normies that are out there, once a psychic change has occurred, the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of ever solving them, suddenly finds himself easily and able to control his desire for alcohol. The only effort necessary being that he required to follow a few simple rules. It's as simple as that. I'm going to stop here. But it really is as simple as that, coming into this room and following a few simple rules, listening to what other people are doing and simply just following along with it. Okay, I came into these rooms over and over and over again for 6 years. Never had more than 3 or 4 months every time I came in. And it's because I sat in these rooms, I sat in the back, I didn't introduce myself, I got in, got my meeting, and got home. That didn't make any sense to me. I thought it was stupid. Why do I have to tell you everything I've done? I know what I've done, and all my life I've been told to trust no one. So why am I going to sit here and tell you all my deepest, darkest secrets? Why? So you can run off and tell everybody else? I don't think so. Plus, I know what I've done. Why do I have to talk about it? Let's just move forward. It doesn't make any sense, right? Well, that didn't work out. So the last time I came in, I said, fine. I came crawling into the door. I said, please, somebody help me. It hurts. I'm an alcoholic. And I finally did what they told me to do. I did these stupid steps. I told them all the stupid things I did. And I continued with the rest of the steps. And here I am, stupid 14 years later. I'm sober. It worked. It's so stupid how simple it is. Now, is it easy? No, it's not easy. If it was easy, these chairs would be packed right now, because there's definitely enough people out there that need these rooms. Unfortunately, it is not easy. It takes effort on our part. But I will promise you, when you start giving into the higher power idea and you go with it, you will see the miracles that happen. That is a guarantee of this program. They talk about the restlessness, the irritability, the discontent. That's my biggest problem nowadays. Okay, my biggest problem nowadays is not really taking a drink. I play in a band now, and we have probably about 4 or 5 shows coming up in the next few months. Every single one of those shows are at a dive bar. Like, if I want to play music, that's where I got to go. It kind of sucks, but I know for a fact that when I go and I play my music, I'm not going to obsess over the drink. Am I going to think about it? Sure. It's everywhere. I mean, you walk into funny enough, a brewery that we play at, we walk in and it smells like yeast. And I told my wife the other day, I said, I love the smell inside. And she goes, why? It smells like nasty beer. I said, to me, it smells like pizza. I said, the yeast, like in the air, it just reminds me of baking a pizza. And she goes, that's what you think about when you go in there? I said, I'm hungry. I don't know. But that's like, it's not a thing for me. Last time I was there, the bartender pushed a friggin' beer up on my foot. The stage is right behind the bar, which is pretty cool. But the whole band, boom, 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 put beers, like freshly brewed beers. I looked down, didn't even think about it. I was like, where the hell's my water? Like, I'm looking for my water. After the set, we took a break, and my bassist goes, hey, did you see the beer that they put by your foot? I said, yeah, I forgot all about it, though. And he goes, can I have it? I was like, yeah, if you could find it. I don't know where it went. That's the beauty of my recovery today, is that it's like, okay, there's a beer, thanks, I appreciate it. And that's as far as my brain goes. Like, I don't think about it. I don't, like, obsess over it. Now, have I had days where I'm like, ooh, that beer looks good? Or, yeah, of course. Like, we played one place and it was like the blood orange brew lager, I don't know, whatever the hell it was. And I was like, oh, that kind of sounds good. But I didn't obsess over it. I wasn't like, it sounds good. Pepsi sounds good right now. Doesn't mean I have to have it. That's the beauty of my recovery. I've had days where literally, I came and spoke here at 5:30. It was a Saturday night, I believe. Spoke at 5:30, and at 7:30, I was at Turn 3, the bar next door, playing a show. And that's the beauty of my recovery, that I get to do these things today. And it talks about it in the 12-step. Now, this came after years of sobriety. I did not jump into my music until I was about 3 or 4 years sober. I was too scared. But it's a beautiful thing today that I can do these things. Now, when I stop going, the point I'm getting at is when I stop going to meetings. Let's say I go for a week without a meeting. Sometimes it happens if I'm on vacation or something like that. I kind of, I'm enjoying my time with my family. And I don't always find a meeting out of state or out of country. But restlessness, irritability, and discontent comes back like this. And I see it in me. It's not about the drink. It's about the inside. All of a sudden, I'm snapping at people, and I'm irritated, and everything's pissing me off. And my wife goes, maybe you should find a meeting. And I'm like, yeah, I think it's time. I think I've gone long enough. But what happens is if I don't take care of that, eventually it's going to be too much for me to handle. The restlessness and the irritability is going to be too much, and eventually I'm just going to say, screw it. I can't handle this anymore, and take a drink. It's one or the other. So thanks for letting me share and go over a little bit today. We're going to try to get through that letter next week. With that, we